Together for March 13, 2023, and we'll begin with the prayer by EMS Director Nathan Sweet and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Anthony Allen. Please stand.
All right, let us pray. God, I just want to, God, that we can have the moment, the opportunity to be still from our problems, our worries, our ambitions, our hopes, the things that we desire to recognize you, God. Not recognize you as we recognize ourselves, but even greater. God, you're our God. We fall under you. We're responsible to you. And God, I pray for this moment that we would take your message of what your Bible tells us and calls us and commands us to love. And love has so many different forms by what the world would say, but your love is very specific. First and foremost, we're to love you, God. We're to fall under you. We submit all that we have to you, God. You are the authority. And God, we want to express that love to you through word, through action. But that is what we're called to first, is to love you with everything that we have, everything that we are, to love you. And second, like that, is to love ourselves and to love others as we love ourselves. So God, just the message at this moment is to love you. Second, to love ourselves. Third, to love others. Regardless of our differences, regardless of our opinions, regardless of where we stand on one thing or the other, we are still to act, to think, to talk with love. Help us keep that in mind. As a community, as an Anderson County community, to keep that in mind, that you would pour love upon this community, upon these commissioners, upon this business, upon this county in every aspect and every way, that our message would be love, even in our differences, even in our opinions. We would resoundingly have love. And ask us all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. Attention, salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of agenda.
I'd like to move an item, sir, the resolution for Blockhouse Valley. I'd like to put it in after number 4.
Okay. All right, under new business, we need to add Tracy Wandell wants to be chairman of the Fire Commission. And then just a brief discussion about recycling. We took this up back in 2013, 2014. And maybe just have a little bit of discussion, see if there's any interest in putting that back together. Any other changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is appearance of citizens. Is there any citizens here that would like to address this committee that not anything that's on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mayor?
So before you is Resolution 2303-1082. This would allow the National Wild Turkey Federation to sanction and host a limited veteran and youth turkey hunt on the Blockhouse Valley former landfill site and to adopt restrictions and procedures for the permits related thereto. And I know, Commissioner Mays, you hate the terminology new commissioners, but as there are new commissioners.
I used it today. I think I've bought in.
Okay. This is something that we've done for several years now, but Gary Clinton Skeeter is here to speak on this, and then also DJ Bridges, who is, you've probably seen out and about in the community volunteering in many different ways. He would also like to address the commissioners on this particular topic. So DJ, would you like to go first or second?
We'll let it go both.
Oh, let him do the whole thing? Very good.
Hello, Mayor Frank and Commissioners. First, let me say thank you so very much for allowing me to attend this meeting and allowing me the opportunity to address the board. For the newly elected commissioners, congratulations. My name is Danny Bridges Jr. I'm 9 years old. I'm in the 4th grade at Braswell Elementary School, and I'm 4-H class president. I'm a proud participant of the 4-H programs. I recently placed second in 4-H shooting sports and second my grade division for archery. I'm also the youngest honorary page to the Tennessee Senate. I just completed my TWRA Hunter's Education course, and I'm here to advocate for resolution number 23/03/1082 to allow a limited hunt on Blockhouse Valley landfill. By approving this resolution, you're believing and supporting local adults and youth like me, and this limited hunt would make dreams come true and have a positive impact for the hunting enthusiasts in this community. I'd like to thank God, the commissioners, Mayor Frank, Mr. Gary Clinton, the National Wild Turkey Federation, and the TWRA for supporting our youth in this community. Thank you so very much for your time this evening, and God bless you.
Skeeter, I don't know if you can, you may just sit back down. You may just sit
And I
back
get a
down.
lot more tongue tied. I'm a turkey hunter, ain't no talker. And for that, I'm gonna turn it over to Darren.
We just wanted to come to you tonight. My name's Darren Harness, and I work with Skeeter closely. The past several years, we've had the privilege of hosting a juvenile / underprivileged hunt for the youth of Anderson County and a veterans hunt, weather permitting. And so,
Birds permitted.
yeah, birds permitting as well. We take, and with the help of Mayor Frank and everything, she's been real good about having the posting it and getting the names turned in and helping us and randomly drawing, 5 youth hunters that may not get the privilege to be out and do what we love to do. And so we take them down. Skeeter's also a range master through the Wildlife Federation. So, we meet down there. John's been gracious enough to let us borrow his building. We go in, have a safety briefing, everybody pairs up, and the kids are allowed to take their parent with them. So it's not something that we do. We just got the adult that we do the calling to make sure everything's done right, safely, and all that. And then we all go out, we hunt, we come back, we always fix a big lunch for them, and we sit around and do what hunters do, snooze or whatever, and, just make a great day out of it and give them the opportunity that, we are so blessed to have. And today, I know there's several new faces. We pick on Tyler all the time, so it don't matter. But today, we had got with Mayor Frank about allowing it to happen again this year so we could get the ball rolling or whatever. And she asked if we could come down and just tell a little bit about what we do and how we do it. We also, it is not necessarily, we are a chapter of the NWTF, but this is the Melton Hill Long Bears, which is our Anderson County chapter. So we work diligently with TWRA. On Free Fishing Day, we do our Jake's Day. 300 or 400 kids that come down, and we try our best. We raise money all year long to buy rod and reels, tackle boxes, stuff like that, so that when we're down there, bicycles, BB guns, every kid walks away with something. And all that money that we raise through donations or whatever, fundraisers, it goes right back into our county. It stays right here. What money's left goes to the hunts. Anything that we've got left at the end of the year, there's always a needy family or something that gets help at Christmas time. So everything we do with your all's help of allowing us to be down there, we do keep it in the county. Do y'all have any questions?
Mr. Yeager.
There are a lot of children who don't have an involved parent.
absolutely.
How do you get some of those to apply, and who accompanies them?
The way the NWTF thing is, they've got to have a legal guardian with them. We can't go in the blind with see why I don't talk. We can't go in the blind with a kid we don't know, just for, you know how the world is today. So as long as they got a legal guardian with them, we're good with that. And we blind them, we don't, most don't know how much you know about turkey hunting, but, if you hear one way off, you usually blast towards it. We don't do that there. We sit in the blind. If he way off gobbling, they just get to hear a bird way off gobbling, So that way we don't cross, It's such a small area. You got one guy 2 ridges over that's hearing the same bird you are, and that way we both ain't going after that bird. So it's no run and gun is what we call it, and it's strictly blind, and safety's number one.
Okay, thanks. And it is, and once we post our youth hunt with the NWTF, then everybody signs an insurance form through the NWTF.
We carry full coverage insurance on everybody involved.
So everybody that's there is signed up and has insurance through the NWTF, because you never know when somebody's going to fall or anything. But, just to make that known, we wanted to bring that up too.
Yes, how old do children have to be?
9 to 16.
9 to 16?
Never harvest a bird in Tennessee. We want to get new hunters.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to get the kids, nothing against them, but we don't want to get the kids that, Papa's got a farm, they kill a bird every year.
Yeah.
We want to get the ones that have never harvested a bird, and that's the ones we want.
How do they obtain their hunting rifle?
If they
Some
don't
of them
have
has them.
Yeah.
And
Some
if
of
they
them-
don't, we always have guns in the
Me
truck.
and
to
Darren's
use.
got 4 or 5 apiece that special for kids.
Yeah.
And this young man he's got one. Come here. I'm gonna make you a deal. He's got a 410,
Yeah.
which is a little small for a turkey gun, but they use them for turkey gun. He's wanting a 20 gauge. So
Okay.
he's been working toward just getting the money to buy this 20 gauge. And if you get half for what that 20 gauge costs, I'll do the other half.
We all heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Is that on TV?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You raise half yourself, and I'll pay the other half for your 20 gauge, okay? But have your dad let me know when you get it raised, and I'll put my part in. It might be in pennies and dimes, but we'll get it.
Or aluminum cans.
Aluminum cans, you don't take aluminum cans.
And on any of these hunts, we do encourage any of the county commissioners, the mayor, or anybody to come out and eat lunch, see what we do. Come and go with us and sit in the blind. It ain't something that we try to, which every year I think Terry's kind of tied up usually or something, but it don't matter if you're not a district of Claxton. Come on out. If you're a commissioner in Anderson County or anybody that would like to come out, if you can flip a hamburger or hand a bottle of water out, come. Everybody is welcome. And by that being said, everybody stays right at the building, at John's building. That's where everything's set up. We've been working quite a bit with the new guy that's, I forget his name, that's living there, him and his wife and everything. So he kind of knows us now and all that. But yes, if it is passed, you all are more than welcome to come down, and if nothing else, come down for an hour or two, eat, sit around, and introduce yourself to everybody that's there. Who knows, it may be a vote later on down the road. Anybody else got anything?
Commissioner McCamey.
Skeeter, how did you do last year? Did you all?
It was pitiful.
I thought it.
I don't know if somebody was feeding them around every year we've hunted in there, that place has been loaded with birds. And I know during the deer hunts the winter before, birds was seen. last year, scouting up to the juvenile, I had to push it back, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Because there just wasn't nothing there. So we pushed it back 2 weeks, and there was some birds come in. And actually, the only bird that was took by somebody that come across the railroad trestle and shot it out in front of one of our kids. And luckily, he was gone before I got there. Me and him would have words, because he walked by the blind and knowed them kids. That kid was, well, I mean, by that time it was adult season. You know, he might not know there was a kid in the blind, but you still don't do that. Jump 50 yards in front of somebody.
I thought it was kind of thin last year. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been out there a couple, 3 times. Darren's been out there a couple times now. I've got lazy over the winter and I ain't trumped up in the woods yet, but I walked the roads and stuff, and pretty much everything I've seen's cow, scat, and just ain't, you know. Of course, I ain't been in the woods, so.
Can they kill a coyote while they're there?
Yes.
If we're in there on a turkey hunt and a cow comes in range, it automatically turns into a coyote hunt. I mean,
That's good.
they're just, I mean,
Last year.
I walked out the road from the gate to the fork out the far end, probably 150 yards,
Yeah.
and I bet there was 30 piles of scat out the road from coyotes.
Hmm.
And that may be a problem on the turkeys. I mean, it may be hurting, keeping them pushed out.
Right.
But I suspect it's a might feeding them around the area.
Well, maybe we need to organize a coyote hunt out there.
That sounds great.
Or, the most effective on that is trapping. But I'd have to be in the Roane County, or the Anderson County Jail down here before I ask Mr. John about setting a trap out there. He loves that dog. He carries with him too much to get in the foothold. I wouldn't do it. But, yeah, it is got a coyote problem bad. And we can do that. I mean, we can take care of that. Youths love to do that. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve this for the county commission.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Chairman Anderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. He was mentioning John's building. That's John Bird, I'm on the Clinch River Environmental Studies Organization Board, the CRESO board, and if any of the commissioners are interested, I know Commissioner Mays and Palmer and I were there a couple weeks ago, but our next CRESO board meeting is May 17th from 4:30 to 5:30 at the CRESO site. So if you're interested in this building and location and you can't make it to the hunt, May 17th is, they do some interesting, neat stuff there with the CRESO
is John still,
site.
last time I talked to John, Lindsay was trying to fade into his
Mhm.
spot, but I just don't see him fading out much. But yeah, John's really helped us
Yeah.
over the hunts we've had, and more than welcome to us.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
We
Thank
appreciate,
Thank you.
appreciate you greatly.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
Sure.
Thank you. Next, we have Planning Commission discussion by Harold Edwards. Joe Barrett was going to be here, but he couldn't make it tonight, but Harold, he'll do a fine job.
Thank you, Commissioner Isbell. I'm Harold Edwards. I know most of you. I'm personally acquainted with most of you. I've been on the Planning Commission, I think, since 2016. The reason I'm here, Joe Barrett was supposed to be here, but he had another obligation. But we have been working on revisions to our current zoning resolution. There are a few things that we're kind of going through and cleaning up. The reason that we are doing this is in 2021, we did a new land use plan, and the zoning resolution is the vehicle to implement the land use plan. So we've gone through most of the zoning resolution so far, had several workshops, and Joe has sent out a memorandum. I'm assuming that everybody got this. Is that correct?
It's in the agenda.
It's in the agenda packet. Okay, good. First of all, does anybody have any questions regarding that? memorandum on what we're looking at. I will call your attention to one item in there. Joe has developed a matrix, an evaluation matrix, which is going to be beneficial, I think, to the county commission as a whole when you're considering zoning changes. The evaluation matrix will identify the zone and identifies the permitted uses in that zone. So if you are looking at a rezoning request from an R1 to an R2, for example, you're going to be able to look there and say, okay, this is what's currently allowed in the R1. This is what could be allowed in the R2. So it's going to be a very quick reference for each of you. So once that is adopted and part of the resolution, again, I think that's going to be very beneficial to you when considering changes in the zoning. Couple of other things that we are doing. We have 2 agricultural zones currently. One is a rural residential. We're going to have 1 agricultural zone, and we're going to have 3 residential zones. We'll have an R1S, which will be restricted exclusively to single family. We'll have an R1, which will be a little bit more open, which will allow mobile homes or double wides, I guess, as we would call it. And then we're going to have an R2, which is a higher density, allowing for apartments or duplexes. So we'll have those 3. Commercial is probably going to remain pretty much the same, as well as the industrial. A couple of things that we are looking at are trends that are evolving in our community, and one is we're going to make provisions for agritourism. That is a emerging part of our economy here and throughout the country. So we're going to make provisions for that. That can be a very nice boost, I think, to the local economy, and just making sure that those uses are planned and making accommodations for them. The other thing that we're going to be addressing, and we addressed that in our last workshop, are the short-term residential rentals. And what we're considering right now is distinguishing between owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied short-term rentals. There's a huge difference in those. I can speak from personal experience there. The non-owner occupied short-term rentals will probably be restricted to 1 of the residential zones. We are going to, or we're recommending that those be approved by special exception of the Board of Zoning Appeals with certain criteria that must be met, such as off-street parking, making sure that they have the fire extinguishers, carbon monoxide detectors, basically safety issues. So those can be approved. Now, there may be an opportunity administratively to create some revenue streams through permitting short-term rentals or taxing the content as personal property tax. So that could be another opportunity there. So we're going to be, I guess, coming back to this committee and giving you updates as we go through this process. But again, we just wanted to come and let you know that we are diligently working to make the zoning resolution more consistent with what's going on in today's world. Does anybody have any questions?
One thing, go ahead.
Whenever.
Go ahead, Chairman.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, on the short-term rentals, has anything changed at the state level that allows us to have more teeth? It seems like we had an issue a year or more ago where the state kind of overrode us.
The state does not or defines short-term rentals as a residential use. I had an issue personally in my neighborhood. We ended up going to court with our restrictions and covenants. The court ruled that short-term rental, and it was a non-owner occupied short-term rental. It had a business name, had a business license, and the court ruled that it was a business. My contention was that if it's a business, it's a commercial use and not residential use, and therefore should not be allowed in that zone. But the state, I think the lobby with Airbnb and VRBO somehow got the language included in state legislations that stated that short-term rentals should be considered as residential. So I don't think anything has changed from that definition so far.
And this new resolution will be streamlined from what it is presently, because there's a lot of things in there that's, you know, repeated several times, and sometimes in some of it, it kind of contradicts itself.
It does.
So.
One other thing that I did want to mention, we are recommending reducing the lot size, minimum lot size for lots that are served by public water and have on-site sewage disposal from 22,000 square feet down to 20,000 square feet. Health Department generally will approve that. I don't know what the logic was in that, but that's a little bit over half an acre. And one thing we're trying to do also is get, you know, be realistic about this whole process and make accommodations, certainly have planned growth, but also make accommodations for development. Tim, I'm sorry for interrupting you
No,
there.
that's it. That's it. And we'll be getting this in segments instead of trying to get it all at once to take in. So, you know, it's in your packet if you want to look at it. And then if you want a copy of the present resolution, we can get that to them as well.
Right.
Just try to compare. So, Margie, have you got anything you want to add, or? Okay.
You have any questions? Okay. Thank you for your support and communication with the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Next is EMS update on progress and 5-year plan by Nathan Sweet, EMS Director.
Chairman? I know we did put in the minutes for you all the copy from our 5-year plan from 2019. I didn't want to have to necessarily print that off for everyone, but it is, I believe, in your packet. I did have an additional item that's just kind of a breakdown that I'll go over real quick. If you can pass that down, but I'll get Mr. Grant. Didn't want to have to make Chairman Anderson get up and walk away all the way over there. Interesting meeting so far. I'm going to try and figure out how to get this young man to come during my budget meetings, talk on my behalf, and really wondering what it's going to be like if I invite you all to hang out with me with a gun. I don't think it's going to go quite as effective as some of the other ones. But I did want to take the time, and Mayor Frank and I have talked off and on about us coming back, and we did a 5-year plan in 2019, submitted that to Operations Committee. I felt it was long overdue for us to kind of follow back up with you all of where we have fallen on this plan, what we have accomplished, what we have not. So what I did is the document that I've given you is just a few pages of some of those measurables that we listed in our plan. I kind of took them out and then tried to make it simple of did we complete it, did we not. So there at the very top, you'll see at the end if it was improved, completed. It has some definitions there. And then the follow after that is a lot of the goals, a lot of other items, changes, recommendations. This was obviously post-audit that we had. And then I put a check mark by those that we completed, or at least maybe partially completed, and an X by those that we did not. So that took us through fiscal year ending 22. The plan did, although it is a lot of those things that we are still working to complete or to define in the future, and we'll continue to work on those. Some of them are ongoing. But I wanted to take the opportunity, if we provided you a plan, I wanted to have a follow-up afterwards to be able to provide to you all of how we did as a department, how we did as a county with that. So a lot of these goals, County Commission played a huge part in those. So I do want to emphasize that current commissioners because it has carried over, but even former county commission played a big part in us achieving these goals, especially with the capital outlay purchases and the many things that we continued to target. So honestly, I didn't want to, Commissioner, I fully trust you all can read this document, didn't want to have to read it to you per se, but, and I know it's fresh to you, but I did not know if any of y'all had some questions or comments that you had based on our previous 5-year plan and so on and so forth.
Any questions? Mr. McCamey?
Nathan, about the sixth one down, fifth one down there, alternate funding opportunities that not addressed. Why has that not been addressed?
Well, honestly, we've had some off and on conversations about some of that. It's just never progressed. So some of the ideas never progressed even to a committee. In regards to membership programs like a lot of private ambulance services do, there have been discussions. Those haven't necessarily reached a committee. Some of that was just identifying where we were currently at. So honestly, I can't give you like it was shot down, but we just haven't elevated those discussions. I do hope to have some of those discussions in the future. We've briefly discussed that even at our meetings that we had with commissioners that came on site just a little while ago. We did bring that back up, if that's something, an avenue for us to take a look at.
We talked about subscription service many years ago, and some of them are very successful,
Yes, sir.
and then others are not, is what we found out. But, you know, it's something I think that we need to maybe look at again, because just about all of your air ambulances now are, you know, reaching out to people, subscription service. And it might be a good opportunity right now to look at that again and see if it's something that would be feasible.
And honestly, I think we get to that point, I really would like some feedback from commissioners on that. I mean, we can work on things and develop and present those, but your understanding of how a membership program,
Yeah.
I like the word membership. I used to call it subscription, and then Andersonville happened. So I call it a membership now, thinking of you, Chairman Anderson. But yes, a lot of ground ambulance services have done membership programs for a really long time. You're right. They're successful if you get people to sign up for them.
Right.
If you don't, then, I mean, it does impact those people that are signed up for them. In regards to us as a commission gaining funds from those, it is based on the number of households that would sign up for them. But private ambulance services, which pretty much all the air ambulance services, especially in this area, are owned by private agencies.
Right.
They all have a membership program as well.
We actually had a discussion, probably a month or so ago about the same thing, doing it like AirMed does, you know, about doing a membership, because it really cuts the cost down. It's like $65 a year for a family for AirMed, and then if something happens, you're not a member, what's the usual cost?
Well, it's 50,000, 60,000 for an air ambulance ride. Now you have to take a look at the company. So I think AirMed is not what I would call a membership program. AirMed is kind of like you pay a subscription to them, and then they'll work with the air ambulance service to try and get your payment down. I don't know how that all works, but I will know, as being a provider, we've had those companies contact us and say, hey, we would like a 60% discount or a 40% discount, and we'll settle today. And we tell them, said, I'm sorry, we're not authorized to do that. Here's our rates. And, you know, we don't compromise. My question would be was what happens when the helicopter service doesn't compromise on their rates? Who's going to pay that?
Exactly.
But like UT Lifestar, who is owned by Medtrans, they have a subscription or a membership program, and it's directly with them. And so if you were to use their services, they bill your insurance, and then they write off the rest. And that's what a membership program, even for ground ambulance services, has looked like.
Okay. Commissioner Mays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nathan, just a little update on the development of station replacement.
It continues to have conversation. I did meet with Clinton Fire Chief, because we have talked about a mutual build in the future. That's still on the table. They're working on developing some stuff down the road for down by the interstate. So that is an ongoing conversation. Nobody is against it. It's timing. How does that work? How does that look? Development of that. I did, of course, I did talk with Hollingsworth Foundation. No go on building on their property. But I did ask Mayor Frank, and she is going to take a look into possible CDBG in the future. Not necessarily under the county's umbrella, but maybe under like one of the municipalities, if they're not going to use their CDBG or apply for, maybe we can under that. So we have had those discussions. We've taken a look at other opportunities and options, but honestly, right now, we haven't found anything.
How much, in ballpark, how much would it cost to build a new station? And I'm not saying replace, like move a station, I mean a new one. A new station and have new staff, new trucks, so increasing, employee count and a building. How much, do we have any idea what that would be?
So, ambulance station, a substation,
Mhm.
okay, where you're talking about ambulance, 2 personnel, 24-hour operation. For the substation itself, you're probably looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet.
Mhm.
That's including the garage. Today's market could be anywhere from $250 per square feet to, I've heard, as high as $500 per square feet. So that'd be the simple math I'm not going to do for you at this
I
moment.
would just make sure the
But-
sheriff arrests some skilled carpenters.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I can lay in some flooring. I'm pretty
Yeah.
good at that. So that would be station-wise, the square footage that you'd look at. So if you're gonna build brand new, that's where you can get some of those numbers. Honestly, I think it's closer to the 250 than it is to 500. For staff, you're looking at 8 personnel, 4 medics, 4 EMTs. So you're probably looking at 400, 500,000 with benefits and everything, pay and benefits for operating costs on that. New ambulance is about 250,000. That doesn't include stretcher or cardiac monitor. Cardiac monitor is probably 45,000. Stretchers, I think we just bought 12 of them. They're supposed to be delivered hopefully next month. They're about 29,000 a piece. Honestly, I think we might be able to use our own current equipment if we were to do that as a initial cost savings. But it's going to be the reoccurring cost. The utilities, what would the utilities cost? I'd have to look at that and take a shot in the dark from some of those things. So staffing, personnel, that's going to be your biggest reoccurring cost.
I mean, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong though, but I would almost think that your current call volume would almost warrant that in terms of call volume.
Yeah, so there's 2 sides to this. We definitely need more help during the day.
Mhm.
Our daytime is the workload. My concern in the future is that with the growth that we're seeing in Anderson County, in my terminology, explosive growth, especially Oak Ridge is building more and more apartment complex. Phil Yeager keeps freaking me out when he says, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And I'm like, "You're gonna have to, I'm gonna start blocking his number or something, maybe, because he gets my heart going." I think future call volume is definitely going to need a 24-hour, but I really need daytime. our nighttime is not as bad. Our daytime is really what we need. We did put in, as I typically do, we put in 3 budget requests, and one of those budget requests was for a daytime ambulance. Because that's when we experience the majority of our level zeros. Our code whites, where we run out of ALS ambulances, it's over, I think it's like 86%. It's in your packet. I think 86% are from 8A to 8P. And so that's when we would target an ALS truck. So now instead of 8 people, it'd be 4. 4 people to staff that ambulance, be every day, 8A to 8P, paramedic, EMT. And in my budget request, I said we would use our current ambulance fleet, our current equipment, so we're not asking for any additional equipment to put that truck on. I think that is the logical next step for our service. As we continue to grow, if things change, Claxton is still on our radar. We want to move the Clinton truck from by the jail to South Clinton, but honestly, that truck moves more than any other truck. So yes, we're moving it closer to Claxton, but if it's the one that's out of station more often, have we really accomplished what we're pushing for? So this is now, if we get a day truck and it's with that truck, with that Clinton truck, then we do have a better response to Claxton, a more consistent response with that truck. So I imagine we'll have those discussions in the budget process is going through. But right now, I think it's the daytime that's our target.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah,
Commissioner Yeager.
Thank you. The delivery schedule, what are things looking like upcoming? You have a couple coming real soon, I believe, right?
Yes. So we're supposed to have 2 transits will be completed construction this month, delivered next month. The transits, as some of you all may recall, those are built in Ohio. They'll be delivered here. We're hoping they'll actually be delivered this month, but we're expecting next month. We ordered those in the fall of 2022. That was part of the 6 that we ordered. The 2 ambulances we ordered in the fall of 2021 are expected to be here this fall, August, September. And then the other 4 ambulances of the 6 that we ordered are currently scheduled for January 1, 2025 is when they're expected. And it boils down to a Ford E350 chassis issue. Ambulance prep package, let me preface that, because it's not just any E350. Before I get phone calls from people saying I can find an E350, it's an ambulance prep package, very specific, and ambulance manufacturers will only build on a prep package. So that's the current update, which is an improvement from other updates that we've received.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Nathan.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next is mayor's report.
You all already took care of the planning commission and the Blockhouse Valley landfill site, so the only other item is the logo brand guide document. I brought this to Operations Committee last month for a 30-day comment. Before I ask for your approval, I did receive one comment from Commissioner Allen who suggested adding some nuclear language into the brand identity. So we did adjust that language to reflect Anderson County has a rich history dating back to our founding in 1801 from coal mining and pearling to our rise from agricultural infancy to becoming a world-leading technological and nuclear powerhouse. Our county is unique. And I did not receive any other comments.
Do we need any motion?
Yeah, if you would motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve the logo.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Or the
believe it was-
guidance document is what it is, yeah.
and I believe it was something several meetings ago, Commissioner Wendell even brought up, is I don't know who would be the appropriate person to bring forth a request, but with either like some lanyards or like a lapel pin or anything like that. Be kind of a cool way for the employees to get, not just commissioners, but I don't know who would need to bring that forward, but I would like to see that as well.
Okay,
That way we
absolutely.
can show that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next is Mr. Mark Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the invitation to come out and talk to you all tonight about poll worker compensation. And we've been working on that for several months. And I wanted to kind of put forth what the Election Commission has approved. Poll workers are a vital part of the election process, and they should be compensated in an appropriate manner. And we couldn't do what we do without their hard work and diligence, and I think this is a good start to showing that appreciation.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you coming, and we made a request a few months ago, and you said you'd get on it and get with your board, and we really appreciate you doing that. Just take a second to look over this, and if anybody's got any questions.
Sure.
Mark,
Mr. McCamey?
how does this compare to other counties? Did you
I think-
check with other counties to see?
We did. I think it's in the ballpark. Of course, you know, Knox County and some other bigger counties, of course, pay more because they have more employees and they have more resources to pay with. But I think this is a reasonable amount. I think it's a good start anyway.
What is MBB?
MBB is a mobile ballot box. Those are when you bring back the JVCs, well, we won't be doing that anymore, but when they did, the little cards are inside. That's a mobile ballot box. So yes, that's what it is.
So that's like when they drive over to New River to pick them up and bring them back?
No, actually, they will bring those on election night. We'll
Okay.
actually compensate our poll workers for doing that when they bring that back
Okay,
into the courthouse on election night,
I see.
at each precinct.
All right. If any of the commissioners out there have got any questions, just feel free to raise your hand too. Anything else from any of the other
Is
commissioners?
this what you've proposed in your
The
upcoming
election-
budget?
Yeah, the election commission has approved that proposal, and yes, that'll be, as far as
It'll go
put forth
for
in
the
the next
budget.
budget. It will take place then, if it's approved, then on March of 2024 election will be the first election for that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there is one more thing, Mr. Stevens. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, there was a concern, people are concerned about voter integrity, security, and their proper vote. And a couple of weeks ago, I was receiving phone calls that I had voted Democrat. Of course, you know that I am the twice elected former chairman of the Anderson County Republican Party. So that created a big storm that why would the chairman, the former chairman of the Republican Party, vote Democrat? So I got a third party, which was Mayor Frank, to really talk to you about that, how that could happen. I want to remove myself from the investigation to let you figure out what happened. Can you tell us what happened, why why that my vote was listed on the voter roll as a Democrat when I haven't ever voted for a Democrat, probably?
Right. It had come to our attention, like you said,
Yeah.
about a possible incorrect history that had been assigned to a voter. And there is a process and procedure for us to go through and look at that. Of course, we keep all our permanent records. So
Yes.
the permanent application and the poll books were actually there. So we went back and looked at those, and indeed there was an error. It was manually put in incorrectly. Those are actually put in by a person. It's not done electronically or any form or fashion. So it was incorrectly tagged. You were incorrectly tagged as voting in the wrong primary. So what we did is then we corrected that, put that on and it's now on your permanent record. So I do apologize for that. I am responsible for that, and I'll take full responsibility for it.
The other issue is the fact that because of my prominence in the party itself, it was flagged. How can we make sure that other people don't have that kind of a problem? I just happened to, mine was flagged because people were wondering about that, but someone else that may not have ever, that may not ever get caught.
Mhm. Well, I can tell you, we put in thousands of voter records and
Yeah.
histories every election cycle. And one is one too many errors. There's no question about that.
Yes, it was.
And moving forward, hopefully, when we do electronic poll books, that part of it will be taken out. The human element will not be a part of that anymore. So basically, everything will be done, transferred electronically, so there won't be the human element. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yeager?
Thank you. Can you give us an update on the next generation of voting machines?
The RFP has been sent out, and we're waiting for bids to come in. Okay.
And that's funded by the state, is that correct?
They will be 100% funded by the state. That's correct.
Okay, and is that part of what you're talking about as far as going to the new electronic version? Or?
No, that actually, I think, is by COVID money. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor, is that correct? Yes, that actually will be
Okay.
from the COVID money that will be designated for that.
When will you have that placed?
We will have that hopefully if we can get everything in by, we'll have that again for the March election, 2024.
Great. And this is the first time I've ever even heard about this happening, so.
Right.
Yeah. Commissioner Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with this new generation, will any voting machine, will any of these positions be eliminated with the new
No.
machine?
No.
We'll still need
Still,
all
we
of
will
these
still need, in
positions?
fact, probably for the first few elections, we'll need more people just to get orientate people toward the new machines and the new system.
Okay.
One other question. What's the average age of these poll workers?
The average age of the poll worker for Anderson County is about 73 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many do we have? You know?
About every election, we have about 200 poll workers
Yeah.
per election.
And Bear Stevens, he's on the election commission. I don't know if
Yes.
Bear wanted to speak or
No, Barry doesn't. want to talk.
he's here for support.
That's right, he's still,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mark's doing a good job.
All right. Anything, Commissioner, or Chairman?
Thank you. I just wanted to
Anderson?
say, will they have to take any extra training for the new machines, or will that just be part of the
Absolutely,
orientation
there will be
process?
they'll be basically have to learn a whole new system. So yes,
Oh,
there
okay.
will be training involved.
Okay. Is that on top of what the normal orientation process?
I think it would probably be necessary that,
Okay.
like I said, we normally give them $25 for every training session. I think we'll probably at least have to have an extra one of that.
And these new machines, they won't be Wi-Fi, is that correct?
No, our machines currently aren't Wi-Fi, and the new ones won't be Wi-Fi either.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Mark, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Next is Tourism Subcommittee update. I think this is the second set of questions. Stephanie, you want to come up?
Good evening.
Good evening. And these were the questions, that we'd already talked about.
Yes.
And I think the first one is second hardest hit industry in Tennessee. How did COVID impact Anderson County and area of tourism?
Well, it had a negative effect initially, but I think overall, unfortunate to say, that COVID had a positive effect on Anderson County tourism. So we lost revenue from April 2020 to December 2020. We started regaining and exceeding our 2019 revenues in January of 2021. And we probably we were down about 39%, so almost 39.4% during those months, so almost 40%. But again, we regained, so 2022 was 29% over 2021. So I have all those final numbers, and I can email these to you all. One of the other issues that happened along that time is we did get a new hotel. So, and the state started collecting the hotel motel tax from short-term rentals, and so we started seeing an increase in that revenue. So those were kind of two items that weren't directly COVID-related that also helped with increasing our revenue during those times.
On that short-term rental, how much does that compensate into your budget?
Roughly, I can get you the specific numbers, but the hotels contribute about 60% of the hotel motel tax, and the short-term rentals about 40%. Now, I will say that within that short-term rental, I'm also putting Windrock properties in that short-term rental number, all of our campgrounds, all of our VRBOs, Airbnbs, all of those numbers in that. But I can get a specific percentage and
Okay.
email that out to you all. But it probably about 10 years ago, it was about 90% to 10%, about 90% hotels and about 10% short-term rentals. So the short-term rentals are you know, that has really grown a lot. And during COVID, a lot of people were choosing a short-term rental over a hotel because it was a more manageable, you know, accommodations. They weren't having to interact with other people. So they did gain a lot of popularity during that time. We had a lot come online during COVID that weren't, you know, that weren't online before. So some of the other issues during COVID were staffing issues. All of our hotels, my office, we all experienced staffing issues and lost a lot of our house cleaners, our room cleaners, those kind of things. And it's not back. I wouldn't say it's back 100% yet. So it's just like everybody else, we're just having a lot of staffing issues. We did have increased traffic to Anderson County, but I do think like the hotel motel tax, that has leveled off. Even speaking to one of our marinas, he said, you know, we were overran in 2020, the summer of 2020, all of 2021. He said, but we've started to see that decline a little bit because people are going back to cruises and Disney and some of the more popular, you know, attractions and destinations. But so that has leveled off, and I think that we are this year more than anything, we're going to start seeing back to 2019 trends. So, I mean, I'm looking at if we're 5% above what we were doing in 2019, all things the same, then we're doing good. So,
Okay.
Any other questions concerning that?
Hold on a second.
Sure.
So going back to what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
So you thinking revenue will be back down to 2019?
No, we'll see a 5% increase over what we was seeing in 2000. We were trending about 3 to 5% increase every year.
Okay.
But if we can track the hotels individually because we're part of Anderson County, that is proprietary information. But we can track those, so I can take out the new hotel and look and see what our trends are concerning the other hotels. So I
I'm on
can
the same
compare
page with you
apples.
now.
Okay.
My brain just
Yeah,
didn't.
I can compare apples to apples, so without, you know. Okay.
Is there a breakdown to determine what part of the hotel motel tax is from tourism versus business travel, et cetera? What is included in the numbers provided by the state? In other words, how many do we have, you know, just business travel?
And these are two different things I think that we're talking about here in this question. So as far as the breakdown from hotel motel tax that's collected by Anderson County, we cannot break it down to see if it's a leisure travel or if they're traveling for business. I can only go off of what my hotels say, and it's mixed during the year. We can start tracking that a little bit more closely with them, but they will see spikes. Like, for example, if there is a company here working on a construction project, then you will see spikes with like our Red Roof Inn and our Super 8 because they will come and they'll stay for 6 months. And then if you have, like, for example, during a snowstorm, if you have a lot of people here working, then that's extended. So there's really not any other way. There's no hardcore numbers that I could bring you that would tell you that one way or the other.
Is there numbers like what's the average of how many people stay one night versus how many stay for a
Yes,
week?
we have occupancy numbers.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know you do. So.
Yeah.
So hotels, I mean, that's the question I wrestle with is, if I go eat at Harrison's, you see all kinds of cars. Are they in that hotel parking lot because they just got back from the Coal Creek Museum, or are they there because, you know, they're working on some projects with ISA or SL? I'm just curious of how, because we tout the hotel motel tax is a big driver in tourism. I'm just curious of how do we know?
And I can talk with them to get more specific numbers and track it for a period of time to kind of give us those numbers. But the majority of them are leisure travel. I do know that about 30% of their rooms fill up after 5 o'clock. So that is somebody that's coming through the area. That's, you know, those reservations are not planned, and that is different than even what Oak Ridge experiences, or even what West Knoxville experiences. So I know that they do get a lot of traffic off of the interstate, you know, people are passing through the area. But again, I can ask them to kind of give us more specifics and track that, because they all ask, why are you here? And they'll know usually if it's with ISIN or SL, because that's arranged through those companies. So I can get some of that. See,
Yeah,
we'll just pick a specific time and start tracking those numbers.
I'm not questioning,
Sure.
it's just something that gets brought up a lot is, 78% of this is based off tourism or based off X. I travel quite a bit and stay in a lot of hotels, and I'm rarely asked, what are you doing here? But again, everything is treated differently, so I don't know. Just curious. But thank you.
But that is something too that we work with our hotels on, because in the past, we've had a lot of people that choose to stay in Knoxville because of restaurants, somewhere to eat. And so that is something that we've worked with our hotels on to try to educate our manufacturing facilities, so when they are bringing people in, that they're staying at our exit. So the other question that was asked, I think has to do with the report that the state issues out, which is our travel snapshot. So I'm not sure who specifically had that question, but I can pass these around. At the bottom of this report, it talks about the methodology, and I know that the state would be more than happy to come and talk to you about the methodology, because they talk about it all the time. But it is, values represent the direct impact. So used to, they would include indirect, but this is the direct impact: labor income, employment, and taxes for both domestic and international travel. In the transition to tourism economics, all counties have experienced an adjustment. Oh, sorry, that's not. But you're talking about labor income, employment, and taxes. So this does not include property taxes, but it includes all the other use taxes: sales tax, business tax, those things that are tourism related. So in other counties, it also includes other taxes, entertainment tax, those kind of things, but we do not have that in Anderson County. So if you look at the direct local tax, $5.4 million, that's the economic impact on the taxes that Anderson County and the cities receive.
And this is the information that's always given out to tourism
Yes.
board.
The state provides us with this information, and they have a third party that that researches this information. And we have a new commissioner. I'll say new, but he's been there 3 years. He came in with Governor Lee, so I guess 4 years. But he like you was kind of like, well, what's in these numbers? What does this really even mean? So he went to the Department of Revenue and was like, what are these numbers? And he's like, they get these numbers from us. So this is coming from the Department of Revenue with our state. So and then this company takes it, does a little bit more research, and then generates this report. So these are numbers that the state receives through, that the state has from their Department of Revenue.
Any questions on this one before we move on? Are there negative aspects to tourism in our county? If so, what are they?
Well, quite frankly, you're going to ask somebody else that question, because I don't see any negative impacts. I know just this week where I was in a meeting with Oliver Springs where we were talking about development in that area, and the new mayor said, I'm supportive of whatever we can do for tourism, because tourism is our industry. So we don't have manufacturing facilities. Same thing for Rocky Top. For years, we have treated tourism as the industry in that area. Same thing for Norris. I know just what I've heard other people say as far as maybe traffic or some of these other issues, litter, those kind of issues. I think that you would have those issues regardless of tourism. So usually, typically, my experience is most travelers are very respectful of the community that they are traveling to. And so I'm not saying there are not bad or negative impacts of tourism. Or situations that happen because of a tourist, but in my experience, they've all been relatively positive. And again, for our smaller cities and our rural areas, I think that tourism can be a huge economic driver for those communities. Rosedale, we've seen what happened in Rosedale. You took a dilapidated school that's been closed for years, and you have two gentlemen up there that have opened that up for short-term rentals. Same thing, where the owner has several other cabins in that area. So I see the negative, I see the positive impacts of tourism, so I have a hard time answering that question.
Commissioner Palmer.
Thank you. And I agree with you on that. I'm supportive of, bringing this to our community. But I do think that we need to look at maybe counties that are a little bit bigger than us and are experiencing the growth and the influx of people. We've got great natural resources. A lot of people come here for our lakes or mountains, all that sort of thing. So I do think that we need to look at those that are further along. I've got an article here in front of me. This is Middle Tennessee. And of course, we know that they're a lot bigger than we are, but we've just heard from several people just tonight that we are growing. There's a lot of people coming into Anderson County. So, some of the residents are really kind of complaining about what tourism is bringing and even what just the growth, people moving into the area. So some of the things that they're looking at is they want Middle Tennessee, or they're wanting this particular community, and I've got the article.
Sure,
If anyone
yeah,
wants
if you
to
don't mind
look
to
at it.
forward that to me, I'd love to look at it.
Okay, to
Indeed.
stop focusing on expansion, but to start working on things that make things better for the people who already call this place home. So I just want us to kind of look at that, kind of look ahead, some of the people that learn from their mistakes and learn from what they're experiencing, but also remember the people that live here, not our focus just be on bringing people in, but focusing on the people here and how can we make the quality of life for people that call Anderson County home now, making things better for them.
Absolutely.
So, so that's, as far as negative aspects, if it is litter, if it is congestion or infrastructure or strain on services, EMS services or whatever, let's try to learn from other counties that are further along than us.
Sure.
And then let's also consider the people that live here and what we can do. Maybe with some of this money that we're bringing in, we want it to benefit people who live here.
And I do feel like those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I think anything that you are building, and like, for example, the trails that we have worked to build or the areas that we have worked on has also benefited the residents. And, I know years ago when I worked at Tegmer, the owner then decided to come to this area because of those natural resources that we have, because those are the things that he wanted his employees to have access to. So I do think that those things go hand in hand. I think that improving the services to Anderson County residents is just something that will in turn make our area more attractive to
Right. I just
tourists.
don't
But
want
yeah,
us
I would
to
love to see
overlook
that.
our
Yeah,
people.
I would love
Okay.
to see the article.
Great. I'll send
Thank
it to
you.
Okay, and then, of course, part of those questions was already brought out in just that. And one of the things is Anderson County is sufficiently prepared to deal with the growth, such as the EMS, police, parks, litter control. So we kind of talked about that.
Yeah,
then I
and well,
think-
and earlier we talked about the short-term rentals, and that's something that I've talked to Howard a lot about, because I do think that there's space for that in Anderson County. So I do think that it needs to be managed. I do think that we need to already be prepared for that situation. I know Norris and Oliver Springs, and I think Clinton, I think all of our cities have passed. Howard, do you know if they've all passed some kind of ordinance concerning short-term rentals?
I don't think Oak Ridge has, is that
No.
correct?
Katie's checking there, yeah.
And I don't think Clinton has.
Okay,
So it is.
Speaking of short-term rentals.
yes.
I know that Mr. Edwards presented earlier about, if I'm not mistaken, it would be there would be a special circumstance for it to be approved, is that right? To be zoned for a short-term rental?
Harold, do you want to come up and?
Yeah, I guess, since it's brought up, I just want to know, I keep hearing.
Come on up to the
short-term
mic, Harold, so they can hear you at home.
What we are, as a planning commission, what we're considering is differentiation between owner-occupied short-term rentals and non-owner occupied short-term rentals. The non-owner occupied short-term rentals, like the cabins, we certainly want to make provisions, but also not allow non-owner occupied short-term rentals in established neighborhoods.
So to that point, which I agree with you, any folks that want to set up like an Airbnb in Mariner Point right there off the river, or, you know, Norris Lake has homes throughout the area. I'm just curious if there's going to be any impact there with those kind of regulations versus, you know, I'm sure tourism wants to have as many short-term rentals as possible because it is a driver of funds. So I'm just curious of how.
But I think that goes back to Commissioner Palmer's statement about how do we protect the quality of life for our citizens and versus our visitors. So if you don't mind me saying, in his situation earlier that he talked about in his neighborhood, they have a homeowners association regulations that this homeowner was not following. And because your homeowners does not allow for short-term rentals, correct?
We amended our covenants to specify that with definitions, but our homeowner association does not allow business or commercial activity.
Right, and I guess the point is not to get into any of those specifics, but just all up and down Norris are neighborhoods and subdivisions or communities.
There's not a lot of our rentals right now are not in neighborhoods. So a lot of the short-term rentals on Norris Lake are just.
But it's coming.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, it's.
and a lot of what's in Anderson County is already been developed. There are not anywhere that's looking at doing a big neighborhood unless, 80 acres gets sold or something like that in that situation, which that would be a time for those regulations to be, put on top of that development. But right now you've got, 1 acre lots that the individual is renting those, so.
Let me clarify one other thing. Any new regulations that are passed as far as zoning will not impact current operations of short-term rentals. So they're already established, and unless they cease operations for a period of 6 months, then they're allowed to continue even if it may be classified as non-conforming use.
I mean, I'm not always going to be in this position, but I am an advocate for responsible development, and areas that, like, for example, there is one short-term rental that's basically in someone's backyard, and it's like a dilapidated camper. I mean, to me, that should not be a short-term rental. And I know the city of Norris has dealt with this situation where they have limited parking. So they, like Howard said earlier, they want to be sure that if you're renting that facility, then you have adequate parking, because you're taking a home where there were 3 bedrooms in a house of usually, 2.5 household, and you're trying to put 16 people in there. That's not responsible. So the cities have looked at that in great detail to try to limit some of those problems, so.
And that's some of the issues we've seen in the non-owner or non-occupied. We've seen that, and that was like in Harold subdivision, and that's some of the things we want to protect. And then we're actually working with the tourism board to make sure on this right here that we're working together on that. Next question, why does Anderson County have 3 chambers and 2 tourism departments with a population of approximately 80,000?
That's another question I don't think that I can answer. My uneducated answer, I mean, most of these organizations were in existence before I started this position. So I think it's a jurisdiction issue. I just think that each city likes to, have their own organization. Some of these may have been in effect. I think that the Explorer Oak Ridge was in effect before Anderson County Tourism, so I really cannot answer that. I know being on 2 of the chamber boards, being on the board for Rocky Top Chamber, they work very hard in their community. Tim's also on that board, Maria's here, she's on that board, and they've talked numerous times about merging the 2 chambers, and I think they work well together, but they want to kind of keep their jurisdiction and their purpose and their.
And sometimes these, and like being on the Rocky Top Chamber Board, there's different things that chamber does than what the Anderson County Chamber or Oak Ridge Chamber does, just like our annual dinner that we have. You want to talk about that?
Sure. We hold an annual dinner every year, and several years ago we talked about how can we change that and come up with a purpose that really benefits that community. And one of the things we did was we now have all the proceeds go towards a scholarship for a student that graduates Anderson County High School that went through Lake City Middle School. And we also work with Lake City Middle School on a mentor program where we bring a speaker in once a week to talk to the students about different jobs that are available, you know, so that they have an idea, because in 8th grade you have to decide, are you going the college path, are you going the trade school path, you know, which direction are you going in? And so we want to give these children, expose them to different jobs that are available, you know. So we try to bring in local speakers and talk to them about the jobs. We also did the Rocky Top News because, again, we saw that there was a need in the community for disseminating information. So it's different than, I mean, same guy. I serve on the Anderson County Chamber Board, and they are focused on retail development, commercial development, and those different things. So,
anything on that?
I have to say also, I think it's crazy that you have to decide at 8th grade what path you're going to go.
I agree.
It's insane.
I agree. All I cared about was who I was sitting on the bus with during our 8th grade trip. That's all I cared about. So, yeah, I get it. I understand. But I am also very impressed with some of the 8th grade students, talking to them, and they ask us, you know, we ask them what speakers they would like to hear, and they tell us, and it always blows my mind what kind of things they're interested in. So.
Yeah, it's surprising the questions that they ask. Really is. Makes you think that they are getting prepared. What are other jurisdiction tourism operations?
And I think this question refers to what other counties are doing. They're all over the board. There's 95 counties. Majority of those counties also have a city organization. Some of them, like Morristown, is just one city, has I'll call them DMO, Destination Marketing Organization. And so like Morristown, they go through their chamber. Jefferson County, they have been all three. They've worked with their chamber, they've worked individually, and now they're currently part of their county government. Everybody, I think if you polled the whole entire state, they would all be different. And one of the things that we have a 16 county organization called METIS, Middle East Tennessee Tourism Council. So that's the 16 counties that surround Knoxville. And we meet quarterly, and we talk about all the different issues that are going on in our areas. And I think, you know, it's just what works for that county and what works for that city. It's what you see kind of happens over the years in each of the different counties and cities.
Do you find that helpful? Does that
Oh,
help you with-
absolutely. Absolutely. We get I share a lot of the things that we're doing. I get a lot of feedback from those other organizations of what they're doing, a lot of inspiration, a lot of, hey, I hear that you're, using a certain vendor to do a certain new digital marketing. What is that about? So it's really good to have people in your own industry to bounce those ideas off of and talk with.
Chairman Anderson.
Thank you. How many, I guess, counties statewide or maybe nationally, what's the trend for merging, like what was talked about last year, the economic development and tourism and the chamber? Like Green County Partnership,
a lot of them
Blount
are
County
housed in,
Partnership?
we were talking about being housed in the same facility, and a lot of them are housed in the same facility. Morristown is part of their chamber. You have some that are part of their chamber, and you have some that are just housed with their chamber.
So is that kind of what's trending?
More so
regionally or
than,
statewide?
yeah, more so than not. I mean, there's power in numbers. There's a lot of, shared resources in those situations, so.
I have a question on that. Is Oak Ridge splitting? Are I had heard something that the Chamber and the Explore Oak Ridge are not gonna be in the same building anymore.
I can let Katie address that more, but right now they are two separate organizations. They are 501c6 and are you a 501c7 or a C7? So they are two organizations that housed, this is an example of that, housed in the same facility. But I'm gonna let Katie address that. Katie?
At this point, the chamber is trying to sell their building.
Hey, Katie, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your name and your title.
Katie Watt, and I'm the president of Explore Oak Ridge. So right now, the trend is that they are looking to sell their building. Nothing's been decided yet on that. If they do sell their building, we have no idea where they're going to go. If they've talked about going to the third floor of a different building or, you know, other things, renting space. They've talked everything across the board, but, at this point, we don't know anything yet, so if it does sell, then yes, we will probably not be in the same place they are, because we do run the Visitors Bureau just like Stephanie does. And so I need a place that's convenient for people to come in and out of, and easy to access. So, you know, I don't know, it could be 2 years and, you know, we're still there. It just depends on what happens, because the chamber owns the building, but the city owns the land. So it's,
Well, I was
it's a
just
bit,
thinking-
that's even more convoluted, so.
Well, you know, if that's the trend, I mean, we have one here in our backyard that's one against the trend. They're split, they've been together and they're splitting
Yeah,
up. That's the
a
only
lot of it
reason
has to
why.
do though with just where you're located too.
Okay.
The Visitors Bureau in Oak Ridge was actually next to AMSI for a long time in a little house there. After that, they moved down to where the History Museum is, in the Wildcat Den. And they had offices there for a while. And then after that, some space opened up at the chamber, and my predecessor and the president of the chamber decided, you know, hey, we've got some space, we need to rent it. And they were getting ready the city was doing stuff with the History Association with that building, so it just kind of worked out that way. And it's been a good, you know, it's been good for us. We've been able to share resources and, you know, help each other out with different things, so. Any other
Thank you.
questions about that?
No, thanks.
The next question is evaluate tourism expenditures allocation trends by percentage.
I went back to 2021 and, pulled up. Sorry, if you want to pass these around. So the first page with the graph on there with the little pie chart, going back to 2021, the first two columns, 2021 and 2022, sorry, I got my braces adjusted today. I'm really having a hard time here. 2021 and 2022, those were actual. 2023 and fiscal year 2024 are budget. So just know that those two numbers are different. But I broke down our revenues, how our revenues are generated from hotel motel tax, grants, our transfers for our fund balance, and other, which this is sale of property. This is mainly sale of property. And I was trying to think what, ARPA funds was one in that 12,000 there. And then looking at our expenses, I broke down our advertising direct, our cost, our advertising indirect, our building and administrative costs, our the part that goes to the chamber and the trustee, which is 10%, and then the trustee gets 5%, and then salary and benefits and tourism development projects. So you'll see the majority of our revenue comes in through hotel motel tax and then grants, and then the majority of our expenditures are 45% go into direct advertising, indirect is 2%, and then salaries and benefits are the other largest, which always, you know, run high on as far as an expense of a department, and then tourism projects. So in the past, we have spent more, you know, on tourism projects. For example, in 2023, we did 84,000. That was some projects that we worked on with the park and with our trail system. So the next page just kind of outlines the percentage year over year, 2021, 2022, just the percentage of where our funds were spent, so that you can see that for each year. So I know that's a lot to take in right now, but if you look at these later and you have some questions, please reach out to me. But I thought that would help kind of evaluate our expenditures broken down by category and what percentage is spent on what.
Commissioner Palmer?
Yes, I just have, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at this and help me with this. So tourism projects is 84,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're spending close to 300,000 on advertising, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so so my mindset is like, let's invest back into the community, the money that's bringing in close to what, 600,000?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Well, and I mean, if you look at our bylaws, that is our purpose. Our purpose is to market Anderson County. We are a DMO, a destination marketing organization.
Okay.
I mean, that's our purpose. We have, over the years, we've worked on different projects. We have helped some of our nonprofits in the past, but that's our purpose. Our, you know, is to market the area
Okay.
and bring people to Anderson County.
All right, so I guess what I'm thinking is I'm looking at, reports or such, like this is a CNBC poll, top 10, lakes to own lake property. Number 6 or 8 is Forest Lake. That's not Anderson County marketing, or it's not this, it is CNBC. You know, it's kinda like, and they're moving here, not because of our advertising, but because of a lot of different reasons they're moving here. So I guess that's kind of where I'm trying to, how do we, and one of the questions was diminishing return. When is the effort, and you might need to help me with this, the project, you know, I guess a diminishing return is our effort toward a project declines in effectiveness. Where is that we spend enough on advertising and then the extra goes into the community to help the community? Because I mean, that's really what we want to do, is invest back into Anderson County. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Well, and I mean, a lot of that is not in my control.
Okay.
Because, like, for example, I can't give funds to Winrock. They are a private business, just like County Commission can't give funds to ISON
Okay.
to help them hire more employees, or whatever their problem is, to
Okay.
buy a new machine part. So I can't give money to a private individual. I can give to a nonprofit.
Right.
And I can give to a city. These funds can be allocated, you know, to help a city or a nonprofit. But that's where my struggle is. I can't give funds to a private entity, a marina or a,
The way
you
you're
know.
set up now.
Exactly.
Because
Well,
you're
even
in
as
a-
even as a nonprofit, you can't
Okay.
give to a private
Yes.
and help a private
That-
individual,
I
private
guess
company.
that's what I just wanted, that's what we have got to look at as
Sure.
the,
And
you know,
that's, and
commissioners.
sure, and one of the things that we have started doing is developing in those assets. With our ARPA funds, knowing that this was coming, has been coming for about 2 years. And so we knew those funds were coming, and that's why we're starting to look at how can we invest in some of our assets, our trails, help these nonprofits offer a better attraction to visitors and in turn residents. So that is one of the things that we're shifting towards. Because but pre-COVID, if you look at our pre-COVID
Sure.
numbers, you know, our revenues weren't 600,000.
Right. Well, we
So-
didn't have to have this conversation then, and that's why we're having it now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that
Agreed.
is one of the things
Agreed.
that our board has already recognized, that we need to start looking and investing in
Okay.
some of these projects.
Okay.
So, and we have an application process, and so anyone that would like to receive these funds, I've even talked to one of the other commissioners about a project going on with the city of Norris. And we, like, for example, right now, we're working on a project that we're planting trees along Norris Freeway as part of the Norris Freeway Scenic Byway program. That was a grant that we received, and we're helping the city of Norris. So we're always involved in some of those projects. Some of them just are not dollar associated, like, for example, when we had the legislation changed in Rocky Top to allow ATVs on the road, that did not, you know, cost the city or the county anything, but that's something that we worked on to help development in that area. So all of these projects are ongoing. I know Commissioner Varane and I talked about some of these projects too. A lot of these projects are just not, you don't see what goes on behind the scenes, or they may not have to have a financial allocation. But there are things that have made a huge difference, like in Rocky Top, having the ATVs on the road accessible to the commerce areas has been huge for that area in driving their sales tax. And talking about short-term rentals, that has opened up opportunity for short-term rentals
And I
in
guess
that
right
area.
at this moment, I'm not talking about those things, I recognize that, I'm just wondering about the money.
Yeah, those are some things that we're definitely going to be, that, and each year that I plan for that to grow. So our advertising budget is gonna, especially for the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, I think as the ARPA funds are available, our budget will stay what it is for advertising, and we'll grow those other funds.
Okay.
Commissioner Yeager.
Thank you. A couple of years ago, there was a Rails to Trails program that was trying to get off the ground from 2 or 3 other counties.
In New River, through Scott County and Campbell
Yeah.
County? Yes.
Whatever became of that?
Is the mayor still here? I believe at this time, that is under review. The company was going to, it's not surplus, what's the terminology?
Abandoned?
Abandoned, yes, thank you. Abandon that line, and that is a process that the state manages, and I believe that the mayor worked with the state to maybe pause that abandonment to do some research on what's the best use for that area. So I believe that is ongoing, and
Okay.
I can check with her and have her, send you any information on that. And I think,
Yeah,
are you dealing with that too on the?
Yeah, I'm on that
because-
board as well.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we're at, is about whether it's abandoned, and then talking to RJ Corman about letting some other people come in and, possibly purchase that or use it. So she's done a terrific job in getting that turned around, because when we first started, it was just, no, we're just gonna abandon the rail and take it up and just forget it. But through her diligence, it has turned,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Because, I'm probably, you've probably heard of the one in Oak Ridge, because once the line is abandoned, then it's hard to get that back. So we want to be sure that we finish that project before it gets officially abandoned.
And one of the questions, and I was gonna bring that up at Tourism Board Committee, is like, how the city of Clinton, I understand that they use some of their hotel motel tax to help fund the lights at the interstate. Is that something, because the city of Rocky Top, of course they struggle because of the small municipality, but the lights there is really needed, and is that something that Tourism Board could do to help
I believe
that?
they fund their lights through their hotel motel tax.
They do, but it's not significant enough to do that, as you know. And is that something, because if that was lit up, the retail revenue that they lose at night, I'm sure, and then the tourism, of course, when they want to come in late at night, if they're riding the trail or whatever, is that something that,
That's something we could look at in conjunction with the city of Rocky Top, yes.
okay, all right, and that's just another way, because I think what Commissioner Palmer's point is how much, because what we've been spending since 2015 has increased every year. But it's almost like a maintenance effort. You had to put so much of that money back into the advertisement, but is there a certain point where it's just like a cup overflowing? You just keep putting water in it, just overflows and you can't use it.
Sure.
It's not effective, I guess.
Right.
But,
Well, and as far as marketing efforts go, there's a lot of studies out there that talk about marketing and, why you shouldn't stop. And, we can definitely look at the amounts, but when you look at it month by month, trying to advertise 12 months, and even though, December is not our busiest time, people are already making decisions in December. Right now, there's a lot of places that are, have occupancy during the summer that was booked a year ago. So people are already making those decisions. That's why we go to the boat shows in January. People are already making those decisions. So, and there's a lot of competition out there. And with more social media and more outlets, you have to pay to be on those outlets and be seen. I know we can post, but a lot of times if you look at the numbers, not many people see those. And it's definitely not the clientele that you're trying to reach or the demographic area that you're trying to reach. So most, like I said, there's a lot of studies out there about marketing and the effectiveness of marketing and why you should continue to market. And we have competition right here. Our neighbors are competition for us. So trying to get that message out there and all the traffic and that's out there these days is quite a challenge, honestly.
I know in 2010, when I first came on that board, you know, one of the big aspects was billboards.
Yes.
And then I remember as this, you know, as we moved forward, then it became the digital age, you know, that we're going to be able to, for a lot less money, and we're going to reach, you know, 10 times the people. So that's, you know, that's just a change, because it was a big thing. It's about when we were trying to share billboards with other people, and we had billboards in other states and things
Well, we
like
still
that.
do some of that. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, with Facebook, you don't have to have a website. Yes, you still have to have a website. Oh, with Facebook, you don't have to do print advertising. You still have to do some print advertising. So it's not, we're not able to just scrape something off the list with new, same thing. I mean, oh, TikTok's out and it's the most popular. Well, you still have to pay attention to Facebook. So it's ever evolving, ever changing. So.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate the support.
Were we
from-
going to look at page 3 too? I thought we talked about
You
maybe
wanna do that next
mixing that
month?
together tonight.
Just do it the next time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do it next month.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is new business. And Commissioner Wandell wants to be, he's volunteered to be the new chairman of the Fire Commission. Is that correct?
I don't know if I'll be chairman, but
You want to be on there? Okay. All right.
Move to approve? Or does it need to go, I mean, can it bypass nominating? Can we
It
send
don't go to nominating.
Okay.
It's really, it's whoever wants to volunteer to be on the board.
I like our beer board.
Yeah. And, but yeah, it don't go to nominate. It's just whoever, it's like you sign up for it, and
If there's an
Commissioner-
opening, you get it.
Yeah. And Commissioner Val, yeah,
But we don't need to do
It's
anything.
a 25-year term, right?
25, yeah.
So do we need a motion or anything?
No, it's really just saying that he wants to do it and letting everybody know. I mean, yeah, there's no voting on it.
Can we do a motion so we don't back
And
out?
it's just like, well, I guess what it is we're just filling a position, so let's just go ahead and do a motion on it. Because normally, you know, under nominations, it would go through and have 2 commissioners on there, so he's actually replacing one, so let's just make a motion to.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that his sentence be for the next year.
We got a motion, second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous plus 1. Okay. Next is just a little discussion on recycling. Commissioner McCamey remembers back, and this is one of the things that Commissioner Wandell brought up as well. We talked about recycling probably back in 2013, 2014, and we did an expenditure about how much it would cost to do it, and we tried to do a return on investment. Of course, I know it's changed, but it's, I don't know if this board would be willing to look at it again and work with solid waste and see if solid waste, because Commissioner McCamey is the chairman of solid waste, and see if that's something that we want to look at going forward and see if there's any interest in that.
Yeah, I definitely think so, for sure.
Okay, Commissioner McCamey.
We sort of touched on this at our last meeting of the Solid Waste Board, and of course Tracy was there, and we did talk about the need for recycling. And the way it's done now through our contract with Waste Connections is it costs the county to recycle. There's no revenue involved. It's an actual cost to the county. And we talked about a couple of places where we've got extra space, being able to have another vendor come in and leave us a container for recycling, and then let them do the hauling in it, and it won't be a part of the contract. Contract, the haul bill, just to haul a dumpster that's full of recyclables costs us more than we ever get out of it, so. And so we're looking at maybe another vendor, and Tracy talked with one of the vendors, and I've been in touch with him, and we're gonna look at that, having some places different. But I think we talked then about building a building and
Right.
recycling and doing all that. I think we need to look at that again.
Okay. All right, so you were just gonna take that up under solid waste board, and I guess right now, what we're looking for is just, support, that there'd be enough support.
Yeah, or we could have a joint meeting of the solid waste board and operations committee to look at it, and so that we, more than, there's only 2 commissioners on the solid waste board, so this way you get, a majority of the commissioners.
Yeah, I know
an
before we
opportunity.
did a very intense study on how much it would be saving to keep from filling the landfills up by recycling, so we had all those numbers as well. But, so I guess the motion be that we'd ask solid waste to come to the operations committee and let's see what we can
Yep.
get going.
That'd work.
Is everybody okay with that? All right. Okay, next is and Commissioner Val, is he out in the hallway? He may have had to leave, but, just a little news on the, Briceville Elementary School is that you'd heard rumors that it was gonna close and all that, but, that's
Not this year.
not this year. They had a vote, and school's going to remain open. And you see from the students that we've had here tonight, it's a product of Briceville Elementary School. And then they actually, they produce the Coal Creek Scholars that some of us know, and it's been very influential in our community as went on to excel in business. And then I can see what else. Next, is there any other new business?
Mr. Chairman, one thing about Briceville, every one of those kids that go to Briceville have an opportunity to go to Lake City. I mean, they'll even bus them to
Yeah.
Lake City Middle, and they choose to go to that school, and that speaks highly of the community.
And their numbers are very high.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but, they choose to go there rather than come on into Lake City, and I think it just speaks highly of the community.
It does. It does. All right. Under old business, Chairman Anderson, would you like to speak about the forum they're having for the library board?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Isbell. The library board met March 9th and voted to hold a public hearing regarding the book collection and everything. That's March 27th at 6 p.m. at the Clinton Community Center. And I think some of the things that were proposed at the last board meeting, we're still waiting on an opinion. We informally asked General Dave Clark to look at the 2 books that were brought to the last commission meeting just to give us an opinion on whether that was violating the law. But one of the things that we think we're going to try to implement from the library board level is in the system where a child can check out the books is that the parents of that child could flag the account where they could, if they don't want them to check out a certain genre or type of book, that could come up. So that way, we're hoping that that's some type of compromise if parents want to keep their children from checking out certain books, but they're not necessarily policing what everybody wants to check out. So we're hoping that's kind of a compromise. But while we're on that subject, I want to just mention an email I woke up to this morning from the local Anderson County GOP Executive Committee, and I just want to clarify a couple things. They're saying they sent out an email to say, please attend the Protect Our Children Forum, which it's an official library board public hearing. It's noticed and everything, so we're not calling it that. And I won't go into the list of things that they've accused the board of or the library directors of, but it's a lot of misinformation, and it's a lot of really inflammatory stuff. And I don't know if this is one person speaking for the party or if this is the party position. I'd like a little clarity on that, but we need to remember as commissioners, I know there's some commissioners on the GOP Executive Committee. The library employees are county employees.
That's correct.
They don't have a secured, guarded entrance that they can be behind like courthouse employees, but they're every bit county employees. They're out there having to walk to their cars alone sometimes. And when you put stuff out that's in this email, you're putting a big target on people's back, and I think we need to be more mindful of the accusations and the rhetoric. But I hope everybody that can attend on the 27th will come, and we're going to make every effort to let everybody that wants to speak, speak.
And that's good, because it needs to be a civil opportunity to speak without threats, and I don't support anybody threatening any employee. You may differ in your opinion, but please, just keep it civil when we get there, but it gives you the opportunity to speak, no matter what, violence or anything like that. That's just uncalled for.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, would there be a sign-up sheet? I heard that there would be a sign-up sheet, and you would limit people's talking time. Can you talk about that also?
We're going to try to, keep with the 3-minute rule that we use with county commission, just so everybody will have time. And we're going to have try to do the sign-up sheet just to kind of keep the flow moving. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to try to limit it to so many on this side or so many on this side. We'll try to let everybody that wants to talk. But I want to remind everybody at the meeting, the remarks need to be made to the board and the chair, and not, if somebody wants to hold a revival, they need to go rent the community center themselves and do that on their own time, I think. But, yeah.
I know our purpose is not to try to ban books, because we can't do that, but our purpose is to try to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And it's not about banning books, it's just about maybe how they're checked out, without going into a lot of detail, and that's something that you'll have the opportunity to take up in the forum.
My name's Sharon Todd, and I'm a resident of Anderson County, live in 911 Mahaffey. And you were telling us earlier, Mr. Allen, that you were misrepresented as a Democrat, and you're very active in the Republican Party. Is that the official position of the Anderson County GOP on the books that, Commissioner Anderson was talking about?
Address the chairman, please.
Pardon?
You have to address the chairman in these
Okay, the chairman,
committees.
okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if that was their stance, if anybody knew.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share with the commission, I was here for the last full commission meeting with the rezoning for the Dollar General in Marlow. I sat next to a woman who taught school in Roane County. She lives in Marlow. And she said, I can't believe they're having a hearing about books. She said, I teach middle school, and I have kids in my class who wear ankle bracelets. They're being raised by their grandparents and great-grandparents, and said there's a lot bigger problems out there than books. Said most kids won't even read books. And she was absolutely, she couldn't believe it.
Well, there's actually a book that's out there. It's called The Assassin's Creed, and I think there's 17 copies. Is that correct, in our school libraries?
Yes, and from what I understood talking to Dr. Parrott, he had talked to the school librarians, it's more about it's like Alien Teachers. It's more of a comic book type. I realize there's some violence in it.
And what it's about, it's an alien teacher, but it's regular students, and they talk about how to basically assassinate other kids and their teacher. They actually, because I've looked at the book, and they actually go in and assassinate the teacher. But those are some of the things that, that I think everything's important.
Everything.
But it's shocking to me to know that there's a book like that out there in our school system, because we hear about that every day.
It is, and it's online too. There's more online. I think it's worse online than it is in the libraries, but I appreciate what y'all are doing about this and talking about it.
Ma'am, I think, the issue has to be too, is that people are not trying to ban books, but there is an issue with these explicit books in the library.
Well,
You know, and so I think that people really need to look at.
Commissioner, if you don't mind, address the chairman on that.
Yes, and I think people really need to look at that because it is important to our community standard that there is a standard that has to be maintained. And some of these books, I've distributed the packet to all the commissioners, and they are very, very sensational. They are very, very disturbing in the content that they are giving to these young children. And so that has to be looked at. And I hope that people will come out to the forum and actually talk about these books that are sensational.
And that's why I'm glad that we're actually having a forum, so we
Yeah.
can have this discussion
okay,
then. But
I
thank you,
appreciate
Ms.
it.
Todd.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anything else to come before this committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some other subject. I've been getting requests about Ben's mobile home park. And, you know, as I sit out there in the audience and I listen, and everything's important.
Mm-hmm.
Books are important. How you get the books is important. How many kids have a cell phone? We have a young man from Briceville over here. He's on his cell phone. You know what he's doing? I doubt very seriously he's looking at bad stuff. He's sitting with his daddy. He's probably looking at good stuff. Got a tie on? I'm proud of you, young man, and the young lady behind you. You don't have to be here tonight, but I want you to know you're our future. And you bring confidence in us by sitting here.
That's correct.
So I don't want to go down the book path because we all can turn on TV and see lots of bad stuff every day. So I'm not a big believer in the books as the problem, okay? But that's just Tracy's opinion, doesn't mean nothing. So back to Ben's. I've been walking on Ben's, talking on Ben's for well over 2 years. We spent funds, taxpayer funds, to get studies done by an engineering firm, got the results, nothing's happened. I sit on this committee when it started, went through full commission, got it done. We had a meeting in our community, myself and many others attended, which I appreciate. Commissioner Mays, of course, was there as well. And the folks need some answers. For some reason, many of them think I have the ability to stroke a check and fix the roads, but I do not. Nor does this body. But this body does have the ability to develop a solution of some sort. Me personally, I think it's going to take threefold. It's going to take Ben Graves to participate at the table, the other owners to participate at the table, and the county to participate at the table and come up with a solution. I don't know what the solution is. I do want to say, Mr. Chairman, the county does not own the roads. We do not own those roads. That's why the roads are in the shape they are.
Mm-hmm. So
I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I'm looking for is some direction in how we move forward and get these folks some answers.
Well, if Miss Rachel from the law director's office, if she don't mind to come up and just throw her under the bus.
Might as well.
But anyway, I know you're new to this, and you probably got some background from Jay on what's going on. But is it something that you could take up with, because this is a very pressing issue, and we've took it up several times before, but it seems like, you know, we take it up and we talk about it, then nothing happens.
Yeah, because unfortunately, like Tracy said, the county doesn't own the roads, so there's nothing we can do to fix them. The company that owned the roads years ago when Ben's was first built, or it wasn't called Ben's then, I can't remember the name right now, they are dissolved. And whenever that company was wound up, normally when companies get dissolved and they wind up, they sell off assets. That didn't happen with this for some reason, and we're still trying to figure out why that happened. As far as we know, the last remaining members of that company have passed away at this point. So we're still researching what happens at that point. Unfortunately, this is just going to be a slow process legally, since the counties don't own it, and we're trying to figure out where it went.
Okay, Commissioner Mays?
Quick question, and this may have been 2 meetings ago, or the last, but something was brought up about Ben's.
Mhm.
I think Commissioner Wendell brought it up. And I hate that Jay's not here, because I think he may have been the one to say this, but have you all discovered anything that may lead you all to believe that Ben does own those roads?
Nothing concrete, other than the fact that, you know, he
How
calls
about
it Ben's
gravel?
mobile
Anything
home.
gravel? We'll take gravel.
No,
We'll take-
I know. I had
So-
a citizen actually call the other day, and I'm pretty sure Tracy's probably talked to him as well about potholes. And he said Ben was out there fixing a pothole. I said, whoa, where was he fixing this pothole? And it was on his property. It wasn't out on the road. So I thought maybe we got him there. But there's nothing that says that he owns the whole lot, because they've all been parceled off and have individual owners rather than all being owned by one person.
Okay.
Commissioner McCamey.
Mr. Chairman, we were told that nobody owns that property. There's no owner of the road. And ever since I can remember, every parcel of property in this county is taxed. And if there's no taxes being paid on the roads, then the next step is to file a lien against whoever.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. We
And
don't know
it-
who we would be filing the lien against.
Well, it would become the county's property then. And,
But
and
we
that's
would-
been my thinking all along, is that the county does own it, because nobody's paid taxes on it since that development company disbanded or whatever. They sold all of the lots, but they never sold the roads, and, so nobody's paying any taxes. When nobody pays their taxes, the county takes the property. And then if they can sell the roads, if nobody wants to buy the roads, then the county owns it, in my opinion. I mean, I know that's kind of far-fetched, but somebody has to own it, or the county owns it.
Yeah, and that's something else that we can look into. I don't think that's an idea Jay and I have passed around as far as Ben goes. We do talk about Ben's often because we get phone calls too, but I don't know about that.
What about the grants? I think at that meeting, and I believe when this was brought up last time we talked about, we were told there were potential grant funding opportunities out there. I'd just be curious, I don't know if the mayor's here or not, but if John has explored that or not. Is that his name, or new grants?
You know, I'll tell you, as a matter of fact, in one of those federal committees that I serve on, there's some federal money for this instance, because I was gonna bring that up. And I'll look into that too, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's something that surely we can do somehow. And if Rachel will stay on top of this, and if you'll just keep it on operations committee, we'll have discussion about it every month. Whether it's just, you know, a 1 minute discussion, or if it's a 20-minute discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We can look into more grants. I know we had started that process a while ago. Where we are with that, I'll have to talk to Jay about it, but we can look more into that.
Yeah, and even in one of those meetings, it talks about there's so much federal money available, but nobody's asking for it. And I said, well, the reason why is because you're not getting the word out, you know? It's,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I met with Ben probably 2 months ago now, and he seems like a reasonable person. I think he would, I just don't think he wants to take it all on himself, which is understandable, but he did put the speed bumps in. So he's the one to put the speed bumps in. You know, what I like, Mr. Chairman, is I'd like to have some written documentation. I'd like to have a written statement from the county, whether it's the law director's office, mayor's office, that says an official position on the roads in Ben's. Then I'd like to have another official statement from the road superintendent that says why they're not county roads and what would have to happen to be county roads. And if I could get those items over the next 180 days, I'd be happy.
I know, and in talking to the road superintendent about that, is that it has to be brought up before he can take it. It has to be brought up to county standards. But how do you make, you don't know who is gonna bring it up, so we get right back to square one. Who is on it and who's, you know, who's the onus on to bring it up?
If I may, if there could be a motion of the two items I requested, and if the body's not comfortable, I'll make the motion in full commission Monday night. But I'd like to see motions in play, because as we all know, even when you get a motion and it passes, there's probably 80% of the time it gets carried through. 20% it fades off into the wild blue yonder, unless you are the person that's passionate about that motion. So I'd like to get a motion from the highway department. I want to hear Gary tell us why the roads don't meet the standards and what they would have to be done to meet those standards. That'd be one motion. Other motion is I'd like to get from the mayor or the law director on why the county does not own them roads. And I think that's something that would be easy.
If, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make those motions. If we could make it just one motion, if that's.
That's great.
And I think it would fall under Jay's purview as the official statement as to why they're not county roads. But I'll make a motion to ask the law director and the road superintendent to issue a statement in writing that states these are not county roads and why, and B, Mr. Long stating what would need to take place for them to even become the standard for a county to take those roads in.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. A motion, a second, discussion on the motion. Commissioner Barron.
As I recall, there was a study done on that you mentioned, talking about those roads and what it'd take to bring them up to county standards. It's like $2.5 million, you know, so, because you gotta go in and put the bed and everything else in there that it didn't have. Does the county wanna take that on? $2.5 million to fix those roads?
Well, I think what this motion is for is to get everything in writing about that, because we had that all in discussion and nothing was ever acted on. But once it becomes a formal motion, it's got to go through all the process of other than just having an open debate about it. And I think that's the purpose of the motion, and what that comes out to be, and I think what Commissioner Wandell, Commissioner May's intention is trying to get to the bottom of who actually owns it.
And I think what he's referring to is a study that was done, not necessarily an official statement or report from the county, but something that's officially from the county that says what we're seeking.
Because without that, I think, and Rachel, I may be talking wrong here, but if you have those numbers, it makes it easier for the law director or his office to actually go after somebody and having an amount.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's the purpose, if I'm understanding correctly.
I'm certainly not advocating we take the roads in at this time, okay? But, you know, from the worst case results, Commissioner Varian, for me would be, we find out nobody owns the roads, but, you know, surely to goodness we could figure out a way to go in there, at least patch them, as Commissioner May said, even if it's gravel. I mean, but we got to be careful in how we do that, because we don't own the roads. We can't just go in there and start patching them, and I don't know what the solution is. And I hear my friend behind me here. We need you, you know, because he can help us figure out how to develop with the new resolution zoning to address issues like this. And hopefully they're taking that on as they're going through this process, because obviously it needs to be addressed. We should never have a situation where a subdivision's developed, then people can walk away, and then we're stuck with it for 20 years, and the people that live there don't get no services when they pay the taxes. Because what happens is everybody kicks the can down the road. Well, you know, do we want to put $2.5 million in the road? Do you want to fix the road? And then we wonder why we have people overdose there. Why we have houses burning out there. Why do people sell drugs there? Well, it might be because none of us take the time to put any effort into it. So I'm not blaming you. I'm pointing the finger all at myself. I'm the lucky guy that gets to catch all this, and I'll take it all day long till I, go on to the next world if I get to go. So I'm not mad at nobody, but when you set up here for years and you don't see any results, it gets a little frustrating. I watch stuff come up and we'll act on it 2.2 seconds and we'll spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money on it. But then when we got things that need attention, we don't seem to put a lot of attention to it. It just don't make sense to me. But that's okay. That's politics, that's life, that's business. But at the end of the day, our job is to serve the people we represent in our districts. So everyone in my districts has the right to say, Tracy, you ain't doing your job. They have that right. And I have to listen and hear them and try to address it. So we have a motion, hopefully get taken care of. Sorry for getting a little passionate, but I'd like to see some results.
And I'll say too, Mr. Chairman, Ben's, the community, the park gets a lot of bad rap. Just when you hear the Ben's Mobile Home in Claxton, a lot of people tend to think, negatively. But if you went, I don't know who all didn't go, but if you didn't get a chance to go to the August, I believe it was the 30th meeting that we had at the community center, the amount of people that's been living there since the late 70s.
That's true.
The people who participated in the best looking yard awards, an actual HOA awards, the people who have literally stuck through in that community for going on now 40 plus years, the passion that they had, it is, it's frustrating because you feel for those people who were there that, man, they've just lived through so much of this. And it's frustrating too when they're like, we don't know what to tell you other than just deal with it, and that's just not the right answer either.
How many square miles of road are we talking about in Ben's mobile home park there? How big an area is it?
It's 144 spaces. So I don't know how big the road is or how many miles there is.
I wouldn't say it's a lot, but
Something small, seems like to me.
but it's just the conditions that they're in to get them to the standard to even get repaid would cost a lot of money, but.
I have hope, Mr. Chairman. When I got on commission in 2006, I was told by that mayor then, not the current mayor, but that mayor, that we would never get the open sewage pit covered in and fixed. Well, I'm happy to report in less than 2 years, we, not I, we, because we can do anything.
Exactly.
But we got it done, and there's no open sewage pit no more, and Claxton smells a heck of a lot better since that's been addressed. So I'm not totally discouraged. I'm a big believer that we're going to get it done in at some fashion. So, thank you.
We always need to refer to it as Pine Meadows subdivision and not
Yes.
Ben's Mobile
Yes.
Home Park.
You're correct.
So.
And going back to the planning commission, and Harold can answer us more, is we've got one entire section that's just mobile home. So it's not gonna be split up like it is before now, it's just gonna be one.
That's what we're
Zoning.
proposing, but that's not gonna have any impact on this
No,
current situation.
that's correct.
It's a different-
But it's going,
different
it's
deal,
going down the road, and that's part of the situations we've had with mobile homes in the last 2 years. That's why we're redoing that.
So going forward, and I respect what you're saying, I'm kind of grandfathered right now, but there will not be ability, I guess I'm asking, for a trailer to be rented out, owned by somebody else, property owned by somebody else, and then a different renter. That won't be able to happen going forward?
Are you talking about within a mobile home park or in a separate parcel?
Just a separate part, well, a subdivision of some sort. Because I think that's kind of where we got where we are. Because we have a lot of facilities.
Well, I don't know that I think that somebody could actually rent that property out, if that's what you're asking. In other
The
words,
roads
if
will
I
have to be built to county standards.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what you have here is an example of lack of planning.
Yes.
And it's, once the barn doors open, it's hard to get it closed. I don't know that there's a simple solution. It's my understanding that some of those lots in there, and I'm gonna use that as a, they're non-conforming lots. I don't know how they were even deeded over there, because technically, a lot should have.
Harold, if you don't care, come
I'm
up,
sorry.
because people at home can't hear you.
A lot should have public road frontage before it can be actually recorded. So I don't know how those lots got parceled off and recorded without public road frontage. And apparently, the county has never accepted the roads. And I think part of the lots are owned by Ben.
Yes, sir.
And then he has apparently deeded some of them off.
Sold off.
And that perplexes me, because it must have been a cash deal, because I don't think a mortgage company, that would have been a flag for any kind of mortgage company. But again, I don't know how those people got deeds to lots that do not front a public street, because that's what's in our requirements.
I don't know why the developers didn't have a bond. That's generally what happens.
Well, generally you have governing documents that on a private road, on a planned unit development like this is, or mobile home park, you have some kind of governing documents that outline procedures and funding for maintenance of roads and common grounds. Now, do they have a HOA? Have they set an HOA up over there?
They used to.
Okay, well, and the HOA may need to fund that. It depends on how and probably no documents were created at the time, no provisions for ongoing maintenance. But I don't know how the county can accept the roads in there, because they're gonna have to have at least a 50-foot right-of-way, and they've got to be brought up to standards. And his estimate may be even low. I think it is.
Thank y'all. Y'all have had a long night, and I appreciate it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other Commissioner McCamey?
No, I don't have
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Okay. Now, is there anything else to come from this committee? Seeing none? Thank you very much.